Hope you enjoyed your break, New Year. I guess so, since I don't know if you're even awake to hear me, what I'm saying over here as a response to that. We brought in the New Year with a little celebration in Atlanta. That was a good time to go see those frogs. Pardon me? I was talking about the frogs, I'm sorry. Not the Aggies. So at least one Big 12 school wins this week, this year. So you're welcome, says the frogs. So that was a good victory. Yeah, that was a good fun time out there as well. I'm going to be honest with you. I love the New Year's. I love it. And the reason for that is because I'm a person that always likes to look back and say, "Ugh, what have I done?" But I'm also a person that says, okay, what do I need to do to step up? What do I need to get better, stronger, to enhance and to grow in my faith and my relationships with each other, my relationships with the church, my relationship with Christ. And that's just how my brain works. That's how my brain works. And so this is a great time for all of us to start the year off on a bang. I mean, there's a reason this is called Perfect Attendance Sunday, because y'all haven't missed a Sunday yet this year. And so I want to applaud you for that. And that's a part of what we're trying to do. I mean, church is important to us. I think it's the most critical thing in our personal lives. I don't just say that because that's what I do for a living. I say that because a reason I do this for a living is because this is the greatest difference that it's made in my life. And through all the ups and downs that have taken place in my life, the one thing that stayed steady with me has been this relationship what I've had with people of Christ. And it has to be people of Christ and not just people. That makes sense. There's nice people all over the world. Don't get me wrong. But people of Christ are a little bit different. And that's what we're trying to do with our personal lives. It's just be a little bit different. That doesn't mean we go around and wear more bling than anybody else or buy plastic fish for our purses or sports coats, whatever. That means that we're genuine, we're real, and we're trying to live life to its fullest and understanding who we are, and we respect each other. We trust each other. You don't trust, then you're nothing. We're nothing, okay? And so that's what makes us a little more unique in a world that does not trust, that tries to do things on their own, is that we are united around one person, and that one person is Christ. And so we're going to talk about that so that we can learn how to start the year off right. And there's something that you're going to have to do, and I want 100% participation in this that you can do in just a little bit. But I want to start off with the Ephesians text, which is, again, one of my favorite texts. It's a great way to start off the year because here's Paul. He's in prison, and he is writing to the people in Ephesus. He loves his church. They were just absolutely just a bunch of Gentile people out just roaming the streets, and he gathers them together, and he gives them a cause. He gives them a reason. He gives them a purpose. And so what I like about churches that Paul writes to who are the Gentile persuasion is that you got to start with square one. You got to get rid of all the fluffy stuff, and you have to get right down to the basic understanding of what it means to be a follower of Christ. And that's what I like about this. And that's what this part of the fourth text, of the fourth chapter of Ephesians talks about. So I want you to hear these words as I am saying to them, and also hear the words that Paul says in some of these areas, okay? This is the fourth chapter of Ephesians. I, therefore, a prisoner in the Lord, beg you. I beg you to lead a life that is worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all humility, with all gentleness, with all patience, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to maintain the unity of the Spirit and the bond of peace. There is one body. There is one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope of your calling. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is above all and through all and in all. But each of us has been given grace according to the measure of Christ's gift. And therefore it is said, when he ascended on high, he made captivity itself a captive. And he gave gifts to his people. And the gifts that God gave were that where some would be apostles, and that some would be prophets, that some would be evangelists, some will be pastors and teachers, for the reason to equip the saints for works of ministry, for building up the body of Christ until all of us come to the unity of the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God, to maturity, to the measure of the full stature of Christ. Love that text because it reminds us, especially this time of year, the church has a purpose. There's a method to this thing that we do every single day. There's a point to our being here on this Sunday. And Paul centers the message of the church to accomplish one particular goal. And that goal for him, the thing that he points to the most is the word unity. That we all need to be united as a people of God. Because without the people of God creating a unified effort, the church will never be able to fulfill its purpose to its maximum potential. So how do you create unity in the church is what he talks about in this text. Well, what he talks about in here is that it says, well, how you create unity? It starts with you. It starts with each individual who comes into the life of the church. It starts with you, that you have to make the decision to lead the life that God is calling you to live. The life that Christ is calling you to lead. It starts with you. You have to make that decision. If you don't, then chaos is still there. And once you make that decision, you're going to have to put forth that effort. Put forth your effort to that calling to make sure that you do everything in your potential, everything in your power, everything in your ability to put forth that understanding of who God is in your life. Because the third thing we do is that we have to discover our gifts for our particular ministry that Christ calls us to do. The fourth thing he says is to invest in the learning who Jesus Christ is. You know, we cannot call ourselves followers of Jesus if we do not have a clue who Jesus is. If he's just some neat guy that walked around the earth some 2,000 years ago, if we do not understand who he is and read and put in the effort to understand who he is, then we're fooling ourselves. Because what Paul has also asked us to do is to commit to maturing in our faith. And being an adult does not make us mature. Maturing in our faith means we're constantly learning to grow. We're seeing where we are and where we need to be, and we make that effort to get where we need to go. And we need to define our lives by Christ's standards, not by the standards of others, not by the likes we get on Facebook, but by the standards of Christ. How am I living my life the way that Christ is calling me to live? And when people of God focus on maturing in their faith with great effort, that is when unity is accomplished according to Paul. And then the church begins to really fulfill its potential in the world. There is a purpose for our being here. There is a purpose for our sitting here this morning. The mission and statement and purpose statement of this congregation makes it very clear as to why we're here. It identifies the same thing that Paul identifies with. Y'all know what the mission statement is?
Living our faith, growing our faith, sharing our faith together.
Almost. You got the right words. You got to grow your faith, right? It's to commit to growing our faith so that we can live our faith. And then we can share our faith together. Problem with, we want to live our faith without growing. And we cannot share our faith openly and generously without living our faith. And we can't live our faith if we don't grow our faith. So it all starts with how we grow, as Paul says, to commit to maturing in our faith. So this is where we need to step up this year. And I'm pretty excited about a lot of opportunities that are around for us. But what I want us to do now today is I want us to take a little survey, okay? In your insert, you have this survey, all right? Because we cannot help you get from point A to point B without you communicating to us what your needs are. Now, this isn't an opportunity for you to say, here's what I think Jesus should be doing in the world today. This is a way of saying, this is where I would like Jesus to place me or do with me in my life, okay? So this is a survey that I want everybody to take. So do you have a pencil or a pen? This is the best way to do it. If you go home with this without it being done and say, I'll turn it in later, guess what happens? All right, it's like buying a car. If you leave that parking lot, those dealers know you ain't coming back. All right? So, why don't you take some time to do this? And we'll just talk through it because these are probably some of the questions that you've never even considered asking yourself before. So we're going to take it one at a time. So, okay, we'll do this together. First one is this. Why are you here? Now, there's a lot of options that you have for you, okay? And this is an honest survey, all right? We don't have surveillance cameras watching you to see what you're writing so that we can bug you tomorrow morning, all right, if you get the answers wrong. This is complete honesty. So it can be something as I come here just because I feel guilty all the time, or I just want to be left alone, or you know, I want to get inspired. These are some options that you might have. And you might have other options here. It's get away from home. This is a habit. It's routine. It's duty, something my daddy told me to do a long time ago. So if I don't go, I'm going to be a bad person. I won't be able to get to heaven. Whatever you think, write it down. You're not helping anybody by not writing the truth, okay? So this will help us in what we're trying to do and seeing where people are in their personal life. The second question is this. What are you hoping to find here? What are you hoping to find? And those are some other options that you might have. Something might trigger something. Third question is, how are you seeking what you're looking for? Why are you here? What do you hope to find? What are you doing to find it? Last one is, how can we help you? And these are some suggestions on how you might think you might need help. Some people really come to it and say, I want some kind of a growth plan for me to do. Some people say, I need some accountability because I start off strong, I fizzle in the middle, and I'm gone the rest of the year, okay? And so just some people say, just leave me the heck alone. Just go away, all right? That's fine. Other things of faith topics that you're interested in, that's good ways of which we can do some sermon series as well. You know, teach me how to deal with blank, blank, blank. How can we help you? I want to be kind of honest and very clear as well, because we do serve a purpose and a mission here. That if you're saying, how can we help you? Just give me everything I want. That's not very reasonable. And that's not what we do. That's what our government may do. That's not what we do, okay? We're a little different here, all right? So it's important for us, before we know that how you can be helped, It's important for us to make sure that you know that you're in the right place. Okay, do you know where you are today? Where are you? All right, there's about 3 of you that really know where you are, okay? I know it's a little close to New Year's Eve. All right? You're in a building. All right? You're in a building. You're in a place of worship. Where you are not in church. That make sense? Because church is not what? It's not a place you go. A church is not a building. It's not. It's not something you say, where are you going to go today? I'm going to go to church. That's not what we're talking about. Where you are is that you are in worship in a facility that's called, we name as Central Christian Church. Church is not a building that we own. Church, this is not your church. This is not my church. It's not the preacher's church. It's not your church. It's not my church. Whose church is it? It's Christ's church. There's a big difference in that. Because if it's my church, I want to make sure I get my way. I want to do things the way that I want to do it. If it's Christ's church, then I'm taking care of somebody else's stuff. And I act a whole lot different in somebody else's house than I do in my own. Is that right? So we are simply stewards of this facility to be used to advance God's people. That's the purpose of this place. Church is not where we go. It is not a building that we sit in. Church is simply who we are. All right? So be sure you know where you are. You're in a building. You're worshiping with one another. If you're going to be church, then you be a part of each other. That's who we are, all right? So what does the church do? Another question we need. What exactly does the church do? I'm going to put it in real simple terms. The church does exactly what Jesus did in his ministry. It's as simple as that. So if you don't know what Jesus did in his ministry, then there's a lot of trouble there. You see the problem? So that's why we have to learn and study and grow so we understand what Jesus did and so that we can emulate that as church, as people, so that we can learn to believe what Jesus believes. We could stand for what Jesus stood for. We can go where Jesus went. We can touch the lives of those that Jesus touched. We can share the message that Jesus shared. We have to be willing to give our lives to other people in the same manner that Jesus gave his life. Before his death, Jesus turned to his people and he said this, "Very truly I am telling you, though, that one of you, all of you, who believe in me will also do my works." The very works that I do. That's the church. And then he went on to say, in fact, guess what? You're going to even do it even greater than what I have done. So we can even go even further than what Jesus even started if we get to know who we are and what we're doing here. So when we become a part of the church, you become a part of Jesus' body. You are saying that you now belong to Christ. And this is a very critical transition for us to make. That we are no longer masters of our destiny. We do not own the church. The church or Christ owns us, claims us. We're no longer in control of the church. The church moves us to form and create us in the image of Christ so that we can move in the direction according to where Christ is leading us. We don't tell Jesus what to do. Christ tells us where we need to be. That's a hard transition to make. It's very difficult. To relinquish our control of what we know and to grow in our relationship with Christ so that Christ may lead us, this body, this church, into the great unknown. Crazy. Well, we might ask then, another question is, how does this body of Jesus work? And this is what Paul is talking about, and he talks about it a lot in a lot of his work that he does. Paul says that the church is just like the body in which we use every single day. It's made up of all different parts and functions, all right? And they're all used in unison in order for us to go in the same direction as the mind tells it to do. That's why we need to know the mind of Christ. And so what does the body of Jesus do? Well, the first step is this. First step to be in church is to understand the mind of Jesus. If we don't know Jesus, then we don't understand the church. And we're always telling other people what we should or should not do. That's not how the church works. We have to understand the mind of Christ. The second step is to be in a church, is to get involved with a group who is committed to being church. And let me tell you the importance of this. Because this is where we get a lot of our encouragement or accountability, whatever words you want to use. Last year, Shane and I decided, we're going to read the New Testament in 1 year. Right? And there's a lot of times we don't want to do it. But we keep saying, where are you? Well, 3 weeks behind, 4 weeks behind. And so I have this book I got online. Shannon got it for me because it was really cheap. Because he didn't want to pay any money for me for a new one. But it's interesting because this book is all marked up. Day 1, da-da-da-da-da. Day 2, da-da-da-da-da. About April, it stops being marked up. And it's just brand new from April all the way to December. There's no commitment. There's no accountability. There's no dedication to that. So it's important for us to find a group of people that say, this faith stuff is pretty important to us. Let's keep each other focused on what we say today that we want to do, because if we don't, come April, we're just doing what we did December. So yeah, it's very important. That's the second step, is finding a group of people that you are committed to be in church as well. The third step to be in church is to understand what part of Jesus' body that you are identifying with. Those are called spiritual gifts, and that's a strange word for a lot of people. In fact, it's just a fancy word for finding things about yourself that really give you a lot of energy, and to use them to help the poor and the needy. That's the big thing. Or to help build up others within the body of Christ when they need help to be built up. Christ gives us gifts to help one another who are in difficult situations or help to need us get from one place to the other. And when we allow Christ to uncover these gifts around us, which we do, what we talked about earlier today on that video, by doing that spiritual gifts test, a good start, that brings a lot of joy in serving other people without having an agenda. And that naturally just leads to the fourth step of being church, and that's just to live generously. Live without worry. Live with basic trust for humanity. To be able to give ourselves the way that Christ gives. To give our income, to give our time, to give our worship, to give our possessions, to give our faith story, to give our ministry openly and freely as Christ commands us. We do not give to a building when you give here. You don't give to the board. You do not give to the preacher. You give every time you offer something, you give to Christ. You give to the ministry of Jesus Christ. You give for the very things that Jesus stands for. You give to the advance of God's kingdom in this world because you know within your heart that being a part of the body of Christ changes lives because our life reflects the one that we call Savior. It needs to be a natural response for us. That's what people who have reached the point of growth and maturity say, I can't stop giving. I love to give, I love to share. Withholding simply means that there's still a lot of growth that we need to do. And we need to go back to maybe step one in understanding the mind of Jesus. Starting the year off in the right direction begins by us knowing that you are in the right place. And if these steps challenge you, as they challenge me, if they get you excited as they get me excited, and if you're willing to accept that challenge, then we're going to have a great year together. And we're going to get very, very busy. I want you to do is take a little bit of time to finish up your survey, and we'll call us back.